The clinking of glasses and quiet hum of conversations filled the upscale restaurant. High-end cars lined the street outside, and inside, the tables were set with pristine white linens, each one occupied by a wealthy patron enjoying their dinner. The mood was elegant and refined, the kind of atmosphere that hinted at exclusivity, where only the elite could afford to dine. At the back of the restaurant, near the corner booth, sat a man who clearly didn't belong. Dressed in worn-out clothes that had seen better days, he sat alone, a half-empty coffee cup in front of him. His face was unshaven, his eyes tired but filled with determination. He wasn't here for a lavish meal. He was here for something much more basic. A warm meal, a chance to rest his weary feet after days of hard work. The waiter, a sharply dressed young man named Victor, cast a brief glance at the customer before turning his attention elsewhere. He couldn't help but sneer under his breath as he adjusted his suit. He knew this man didn't belong here. He wasn't one of the high-profile clients the restaurant was used to serving. Victor was used to tending to the business moguls, the celebrities, and the rich socialites who walked through the door. But this man, he seemed out of place, like a shadow among the bright lights. A few moments later, Victor approached the man's table, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "We don't usually serve coffee here for too long. You might want to finish it up. We need the table." The man, whose name was Peter, looked up, his worn face softening as he met the waiter's gaze. He didn't respond right away, his tired eyes scanning the menu one last time. He had been looking for work all day, but he didn't have much luck. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten in hours. The coffee was the only thing he could afford here. Peter simply nodded and began to gather his belongings, but as he stood up, a voice interrupted the moment. "Is there a problem here?" Peter turned around to see none other than Elon Musk standing at the entrance, his face illuminated by the soft light from above. He was casually dressed in a black t-shirt and jeans, his presence commanding attention even in the midst of a sea of well-dressed patrons. Victor faltered for a moment, his confidence shaken by the sudden appearance of the world-famous billionaire. He cleared his throat, preparing to brush off the situation. "No problem at all, Mr. Musk. Just a small misunderstanding." Elon Musk, who had been seated at another table near the window, observed the situation with a raised eyebrow. He had been deep in conversation with a colleague, but something about the interaction had caught his attention. He wasn't the type to let things slide when he saw injustice, no matter how small. "I see," Musk said, his voice calm but stern. "A small misunderstanding? It doesn't look that way to me. You seem to be treating this man like he doesn't belong here." Victor, caught off guard, stammered for a response. I was just informing him that the table was needed for other customers," he said, avoiding Musk's gaze. Musk's eyes narrowed, and he walked over to Peter's table, his gaze softening as he looked at the man who had been treated with such disdain. "No, that's not what I see here," Musk said, his tone firm yet compassionate. "This man is a paying customer, just like anyone else. And he deserves respect, just like anyone else." Peter, who had been silently observing the exchange, felt a wave of relief wash over him. He wasn't used to being treated with kindness, especially in places like this. He had spent so many years in the shadows, overlooked and underestimated, but here, in this moment, someone saw him, and it felt like the world had shifted, even if just a little. Elon turned to Victor, who had remained silent, unsure of how to respond. "I suggest you rethink how you treat people, Victor, because it's not about the clothes they wear or the money they have in their pocket. It's about who they are as human beings. And right now, you're treating this man as if he's invisible." The restaurant fell silent, and the other patrons glanced over, unsure of what was happening. For a moment, it felt as though time had stopped. The air was thick with anticipation as Musk's words hung in the air. Victor, realizing that he had lost his grip on the situation, nodded sheepishly. I apologize," he muttered, his voice barely audible. Elon turned back to Peter with a warm smile. "You know what? Forget the table," he said. "This one's on me. Take a seat and let's get you something to eat." Peter couldn't believe what he was hearing. A simple meal, one that he hadn't expected to be able to afford, was now being given to him by one of the wealthiest men in the world. It felt surreal, like a dream. And yet, in that moment, something inside him shifted. Elon gestured for Peter to sit back down, and within minutes, the waiter brought over a fresh meal, one that would make any customer feel like royalty. But this wasn't just about the food. It was about the respect, the kindness, and the recognition of Peter's humanity that Musk had offered. As the meal arrived, Elon sat down beside Peter, his demeanor warm and unassuming. "You know," Musk said, his voice steady, "sometimes we forget that kindness can change everything. A simple act can make someone feel seen, heard, and valued." Peter smiled, finally able to relax. "I never thought someone like you would even notice someone like me." Musk chuckled. "That's the problem. People think that only the wealthy or the powerful can make a difference. But anyone can. It's about how you treat people, no matter who they are." As they ate, the conversation turned lighthearted, and Peter found himself laughing, something he hadn't done in a long time. The stress of his day seemed to fade away with each bite, each word. For the first time in ages, he felt like he mattered. By the time Peter finished his meal, something had changed. Not just in his stomach, but in his heart. Musk's simple act of kindness had restored his faith in the world, and he walked out of the restaurant with a renewed sense of hope, ready to take on whatever life threw his way. But Elon Musk's actions had gone beyond just one person. The ripple effect of his kindness would soon spread, reaching far beyond the walls of the restaurant. And in the days that followed, Musk continued to remind those around him that kindness wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. As Peter stepped out into the world once more, he was no longer the invisible man in the corner booth. He was someone who mattered, someone who had been seen, heard, and respected. And that was worth more than any meal he could ever have. As the days passed, Peter's life slowly began to change in ways he never could have imagined. He returned to his usual routine, scouring the streets for odd jobs, keeping his head down, and doing whatever he could to get by. But there was something different now. The encounter with Elon Musk had left a lasting impression on him. It wasn't just about the meal or even the kindness that had been shown to him in that moment. It was a feeling of being seen, of being respected. Peter started to look at the world through a new lens. He no longer felt like an invisible man walking through life unnoticed. He felt empowered, as though the simple act of kindness had reignited something within him. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized that kindness, however small, could have a ripple effect. Maybe he didn't have to wait for someone like Elon Musk to make a difference in his life. Maybe he could make a difference himself. One afternoon, as Peter was walking down the street, he noticed an older woman sitting on the curb, her shopping bags scattered around her. She looked tired, frustrated, and struggling to stand. Without thinking, Peter walked over to her, offering his hand to help her up. "Thank you, young man," the woman said, her voice shaky but filled with gratitude. "I'm just so tired. It's been a long day." Peter smiled, gently helping her to her feet. "Don't worry about it. I've got you." It was a simple act, just helping someone in need, but it felt meaningful. And for the first time in a while, Peter realized that he was no longer the one waiting for help. He was now in a position to help others, to make a small difference in their lives. His heart swelled with pride as he watched the woman smile back at him, grateful for the small act of kindness. Later that week, Peter was back at the same restaurant where he had met Elon Musk. It wasn't a place he could afford often, but he felt a strange pull to return. Maybe it was because of the unexpected encounter, or maybe it was because he was beginning to see the world in a different way. This time, however, he wasn't looking to sit in the corner unnoticed. He walked in with his head held high, a renewed sense of confidence carrying him through the door. As he sat down, the waiter, Victor, the same one who had once dismissed him so harshly, approached his table. Peter braced himself, expecting the usual coldness, but instead, he was met with something different. "Good evening, sir," Victor said, his tone noticeably warmer than before. "What can I get you tonight?" Peter smiled, surprised by the change in demeanor. "Just a coffee, please. Black, no sugar." Victor nodded, giving him a polite smile before walking away to place the order. Peter leaned back in his seat, a sense of calm washing over him. This wasn't the same man who had walked in here weeks ago, feeling invisible and insignificant. This man was different. He had found a piece of himself that had been lost for so long. And it wasn't just about the way people treated him. It was about how he had begun to treat others. Since that day with Elon, Peter had been making small changes in his life. He had helped the elderly woman on the street, and now, as he sat in the restaurant, he realized that he could do more. More for himself, and more for others. As the days continued, Peter found himself in better spirits. He started noticing the little things around him. The smile of a stranger, the sound of laughter in the air, the warmth of a sunny day. He wasn't focused on what he didn't have anymore. He was focused on the things that mattered, the things that gave him hope. One evening, Peter received an unexpected phone call. It was a local company looking for a part-time worker. They had heard about his good reputation and his willingness to lend a hand, and they were impressed by his character. They asked if he would be interested in joining their team, and Peter couldn't believe it. He was offered a position as a stock clerk, a job that would provide him with steady income and a chance to build a future. As the phone call ended, Peter couldn't help but smile. It was an opportunity he had never thought possible. The following weeks were filled with a sense of purpose and direction. Peter worked hard, never forgetting the kindness Elon had shown him, and made sure to pass it forward. He helped others, just as he had helped the elderly woman on the street, and continued to live each day with a renewed sense of gratitude. He had learned that kindness was a cycle. It wasn't just about what others could do for him, but about what he could do for others in return. One afternoon, while on a break at work, Peter decided to visit the restaurant again. This time, it wasn't about the meal or the attention. It was about giving thanks. As he entered, he made his way to a table near the back, where he had once sat in solitude, feeling invisible. Victor approached him, his expression neutral but not unfriendly. "Good afternoon, sir. What can I get for you today?" Peter smiled. "Just the water. I wanted to thank you for the kindness you showed me last time. It's made a difference." Victor looked surprised, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of recognition. "No problem," he said, his voice a little softer now. "Glad to see you're doing better." Peter nodded and sat back in his seat, feeling a sense of peace that he hadn't known before. As he sipped his water, he realized that the kindness he had been given had sparked something inside of him. And now, it was up to him to keep the cycle going. His life wasn't perfect, but it was better. And that was enough, because in the end, kindness had a way of changing everything. As weeks turned into months, Peter's life continued to transform in unexpected ways. He had not only secured steady employment, but had started to gain a deeper sense of self-worth. The kindness that had been shown to him by Elon Musk and the small but meaningful interactions with people around him had ignited a spark that he wasn't willing to let go out. Every day, he woke up with a new purpose and a new commitment to making a positive impact, no matter how small. But one day, as Peter was walking to work, he received a call that would change his life in ways he never expected. It was a call from the same restaurant where he had once been treated poorly by the waiter, Victor. The manager, who had heard about Peter's recent transformation, offered him a position in the restaurant's management team, recognizing his work ethic, attitude, and dedication. "You've shown an incredible amount of growth, Peter," the manager said over the phone. "We believe you're ready for more responsibility. Would you be interested in becoming part of the team as a supervisor?" Peter's heart raced. A few months ago, he would never have dreamed of such an opportunity, but now, it felt like the natural next step in his journey. He accepted the offer without hesitation, knowing that this was a culmination of everything he had worked for. With his new position, Peter gained more confidence and respect in the workplace. He became a mentor to the other employees, always reminding them of the importance of treating customers with dignity, kindness, and respect. He worked harder than ever, believing that every small action could change someone's day and that kindness could make the world a better place. It wasn't long before Peter's story started spreading throughout the community. People admired his growth and resilience, and the local news even caught wind of the inspiring tale of the man who had gone from homeless to supervisor, thanks to a single act of kindness from a billionaire. Soon, Peter was invited to speak at a local charity event, where he shared his story of transformation and the power of compassion. "It's not about the money or the fame," Peter said in his speech. "It's about how you treat others. It's about showing up for people when they need you, and never forgetting that we all have the power to make a difference in someone's life. I'm here today because a stranger showed me kindness, and because I decided to carry that kindness forward." His words resonated deeply with the crowd. Peter's story became a beacon of hope, and people started to believe that no matter their situation, they could change their lives for the better, just as he had. Over time, Peter's relationship with Victor also evolved. The two men, once strangers with a tense past, now shared a mutual respect. Peter, now in a position of leadership, made sure to include Victor in his journey of growth, encouraging him to be more mindful and kind to those around him. Slowly, Victor transformed too. He began to treat customers with the same respect and care that Peter had shown him, understanding the power of a single moment of kindness. And as for Elon Musk, Peter never forgot the day the billionaire had stepped into his life and changed everything. Though their paths had diverged since that fateful meeting, Peter still carried the memory of that encounter with him every day. Elon had not only given him a meal that day, but had unknowingly given him the hope and strength to rebuild his life. Peter's life continued to evolve, but no matter how much success he achieved, he never forgot where he came from. He remained grounded in the lessons he had learned along the way. Kindness is not about grand gestures, but small acts that ripple out into the world, changing lives in ways that can never be measured. As Peter walked through the streets of his neighborhood, now with a sense of purpose and pride, he couldn't help but smile. His life had been reshaped, and the impact of one kind act had transformed him into someone who would never again see the world the same way. And as the sun set on the horizon, Peter knew one thing for certain. He had changed, and in doing so, had changed the world around him.